Whether you're constantly thinking about food you should eat, food that you just ate, or food that you shouldn't have eaten, the mental chatter is exhausting. And more importantly, it's also not your fault. In today's discussion, we're unpacking what it means to be obsessed with food.
I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition. A dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals, and I'm here to dispel those.
Hi dancers, welcome back to Nutrition for Dancers with me, Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist. Today we are diving into a topic that I know many dancers struggle with, but unfortunately it's also one that a lot of dancers might feel ashamed of, and that's the topic of food obsession. Whether you're constantly thinking about food you should eat, food that you just ate, or food that you shouldn't have eaten, the mental chatter is exhausting. And more importantly, it's also not your fault. In today's discussion, we're unpacking what it means to be obsessed with food, why it happens, especially in the dance world, and most importantly, how we can shift our mindset to start feeling more at ease with all foods. But before I dive in, don't forget, just hit subscribe so you're first to know when I share new content. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm at To The Point Nutrition, and I share daily tips and advice that cover topics just like this. So let's dive in. What exactly does it mean to feel obsessed with food? Because, well, thinking about food is normal. We all do it. In fact, food is part of our daily lives. It connects us, we need it, and of course, it also tastes really good and sets the stage for what could be a very joyful experience. But obsessing about food, that's a different story. Food obsession is when your thoughts about food start to feel constant, intrusive, and also guilt-driven. It's no longer about nourishment or enjoyment. Very quickly, it starts to become about control. Now, this is a very slippery slope, especially in dance culture. Perfectionism and, of course, discipline, they're celebrated, even when they cross into the realm of unhealthy habits. Think about training more, spending hours cross-training, or even wanting to eat, and I quote, cleaner, maybe even more nutrient-dense foods. The intent behind these actions typically is very positive, but when it starts to take over, that's when obsessions arise. And even outside of dance culture, the idea of wellness often involves those clean eating behaviors that for many quickly become a disguise for restrictive eating. Now, when that restriction becomes part of a dancer's identity, when every meal is calculated, every bite is accounted for, and every, and I quote, off moment leads to shame or guilt, it's a major red flag. So how do you know if your thoughts around food have moved into obsessive territory? I want you to reflect on a couple signs. So maybe grab a pen and a paper while I read them out loud. You struggle to concentrate on anything other than food. Maybe you're in class, maybe you're at the bar, but your mind is focused on your next snack. You feel stressed or anxious if a past meal or an upcoming meal doesn't go as planned. You avoid social situations where, and I quote, allowed foods might not be available. You feel guilty after eating something more indulgent or fun. Eating feels more like a task than an experience. And maybe most of all, you feel like you're swinging from one extreme to the next, either going all in or all out with food. One cookie quickly turns into 5, and then the shame spiral begins. If any of these experiences feels familiar, first take a deep breath. You're not alone. These patterns are learned, and I promise they can be unlearned. So let's talk about why this happens. Because once you understand the roots behind food obsession, it becomes easier to change. Food obsession, or those constant food thoughts, they often start at an early age. Think back to childhood. Were you rewarded for cleaning your plate? Told you could only have dessert if you first ate all of your veggies? That kind of conditioning messaging starts to link food with reward, guilt, and control. As we get older, those messages compound, especially for dancers. You're told your body is your instrument. You're praised if it changes in a certain way. And slowly, your value as a dancer, or your perceived value and worth, becomes heavily tied to how you look. Then we add social media to the mix. Perfectly curated meals, what I eat in a day posts, and influencers glorifying those routines. Basically, it makes us feel like no matter what, we're not doing enough. Enough to feel stronger, enough to feel healthier. And let's not forget, food restriction, whether it's intentional, like from restrictive dieting, or unintentional from a heavy dance load and a busy dance day, it further worsens that obsession. If you are constantly hungry and underfueled, even if it's just because you had back-to-back rehearsals and could not get a snack in, your brain, for obvious reasons, is going to fixate on food. That's biology. It's not failure. It's also not a failure of your willpower. And when we moralize food, categorizing different foods as being either good or bad, we begin to give it so much power, more power than it really needs. So how do we break free from this cycle? I want to walk through a handful of practical steps. Hopefully, you'll feel empowered and start making these shifts today. So first things first, you need to eat enough food throughout your day. This might sound simple, but it's truly foundational. Undereating is the number one reason why constant food thoughts exist and persist. Because when your body isn't getting enough energy, your hunger cues, your cravings, they get louder. And your thoughts about food, they just continue to get stronger. Now, I'm not telling you to count every calorie. Instead, I want you to rebuild trust in your body. Start tuning into your energy levels, your focus during class, your mood from day to day. Also, how are you sleeping at night? These are all signs of whether or not you're eating enough, including those constant food thoughts. Now, if you're unsure where to begin, this is where working with a registered dietitian nutritionist like myself becomes extremely helpful, because we work with dancers to strategize fueling plans that ensure they're eating enough to support not just their basic metabolic needs, but also their performance fuel needs. I also have a bunch of resources on my blog, and I'm going to share a link to that in the show notes that can help to give you a starting guide when understanding more about calories for dancers and around where you want to aim for just to ensure you are eating enough. Now, in addition to eating enough throughout your day, we also want to start utilizing a tool called Food Neutrality. So to do this, we're going to talk a bit about broccoli and brownies. Stay with me for a bit. Yes, broccoli is more nutrient dense than brownies. It has more vitamins, it has more minerals, but that doesn't make you better for eating it. It also doesn't make you a worse person for craving the brownie. Food neutrality, or building your food neutral lens, strips the moral value from the food. It's understanding that food can be more than just nutrition. Food is culture, food is comfort, it's celebration, and yes, it's also flavor. The goal goal isn't to eat perfectly. It's to eat in a way that supports your physical needs and your emotional satisfaction. Now, building your food neutral lens, this is a strategy that I've uncovered in previous discussions, and all of that is accessible on my blog. But to start, just think about how you can view food more neutrally. Here's a continued example. So, broccoli, nutrient dense, chock full of vitamins and minerals. Brownie, energy dense, will definitely give you the calories you need. However, those calories might not necessarily last you a full day of dancing, but guess what? There's not enough calories in broccoli to last you nearly a full day of dancing. So both foods serve different purposes, and both foods can guilt-free be incorporated into your dancer fuel plan. Through working with a food neutral lens, what helps is the strategy of unconditional permission. And this comes straight out of the intuitive eating framework. Essentially, you're allowing yourself to eat all foods without strings attached. And I know for many this can sound scary, but don't forget, restriction and having strict conditions on your food, like telling yourself, I can only eat that brownie if I take a dance class today. That's a condition. And that restrictive thinking drives food obsession. On the other hand, practicing permission really helps to bring peace and ease into your eating. Telling yourself that if food is off limits, it drives cravings, it drives those constant food thoughts. As I said earlier, this isn't a failure of willpower, this isn't your weakness, it's truly biology and psychology. As humans, we just want what we think we can't have. But when you allow yourself to eat those foods regularly, they become less novel. They lose that, and I quote, forbidden fruit appeal. And over time, the urge to overeat or eat past a comfortable level of fullness really fades. Because you know that come tomorrow, you can enjoy the same kind of food. You have permission to enjoy the same kind of food. This is actually called food habituation, and it works really well when paired with mindfulness. So that means when you are reintroducing those, let's say, more indulgent foods into your day, you're doing so with less distraction. That will help you turn it more into an experience and also help you be more mindful to tune into fullness cues. Slowly but surely, satisfaction builds. Another major part of this when we're working to unravel food obsession is to also talk about body confidence. Because let's get real, a lot of food obsession is rooted in body dissatisfaction. But here's a quick reframe. Your body weight, shape, or size, I'm going to tell you that it is the least interesting thing about you. Now, building confidence, it doesn't mean having to love every single inch of your body, but it does mean respecting your body for all it does for you, being able to nourish it, care for it, honor its cues, whether that's hunger cues or fullness cues. This is building body respect. And it's incredibly important when we are talking about how to consistently nourish ourselves. Dancing is hard. Fueling shouldn't be as complicated. If body image work is something you want to explore deeper, I highly encourage that you check out my course, Nourish the Healthy Dancer, Cultivate Confidence. It's specifically designed for dancers, just like us, you and I, so that we can not only work to build body confidence, but also sustain it no matter how challenging the industry gets for us. We've spoken about a lot of strategies here, but I do want to share one last one. And that's the power of journaling, because change doesn't happen overnight. Journaling is not about tracking calories. It's more of a reflection, reflecting on your wins, your challenges, and maybe even some realistic goal setting, especially as it relates to your upcoming food choices. Like, can I get in a variety of meals and snacks in this upcoming week? How can I work to prioritize adequate fueling? That's likely going to look like multi-component, multiple meals and snacks each day. Even just 2 minutes a day of journaling can help you notice patterns, celebrate progress, and even work through some tough moments. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about building awareness. So to wrap this up, I want to leave you with this reminder. Your struggle with food, if you are constantly thinking about food and feeling obsessed, it's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because dancer diet culture typically has made these obsessions feel like they should be the norm. But it doesn't have to stay this way. Food can feel super supportive for you. Healing your relationship with food, it does take time, but it also takes curiosity and, of course, self-compassion. If this discussion resonated in any sort of way, then I encourage you to reach out. I'm here, I work with dancers both in group settings and also one-on-one. You can also subscribe so you're first to know when I share new content, because I've got a lot more topics up my sleeve for us to chat about. And last but not least, go ahead and find me on Instagram, because I share daily tips and advice unraveling questions just like this one. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon.